So this weekend, obviously, everyone was talking about Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. You can argue one of the biggest upsets in women's MMA has ever happened. Now, I don't think it's as big an upset as Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, because at the time Ronda Rousey's star was huge. But in terms of fighting credibility, rightly so, Amanda Nunes was seen as one of the greatest women's MMA fighters of all time. I mean, she beat Holly Holm, she beat Miesha Tate, she beat Ronda Rousey, she beat Shevchenko, she's beaten a Cyborg. This girl's literally beaten everyone, and now she's about to fight Julianna Pena, and everyone's like, you know what, Pena's gonna get destroyed. Now, the first round, Amanda Nunes' performance was just what you would expect. She dropped her foe twice in 90 seconds with a nasty calf kick and a stiff straight punch, and then she opted to grapple a bit with Pena. But then in the second round, everything just switched off. I don't know whether it was a lack of focus or what actually happened, but all of a sudden she gave her back to Pena, and then Pena managed to put in a rear naked choke and managed to choke her out. So from that perspective, I just think it's it was kind of written in the wall what was about to happen. So to be fair, the first round she was dominating. I mean, and it looked like on a striking aspect Amanda Nunes was ahead, but it's just the second round when she gave it back to her opponent is the mistake that she made, and she paid dearly for it and tapped out. Now, I just think maybe I don't think it was a physical thing, because before the fight she looked like she was as good as it was going to be in terms of her physical shape, in terms of her construct. She didn't look like she took her Pena for granted in terms of from a physical preparation point of view. But I just think she switched off in the second round for whatever reason. She just wasn't quite there. I think her focus just maybe switched off. Maybe she thought about maybe her mind was just elsewhere, and Pena managed to take advantage of it, managed to lock in a rear naked choke and managed to choke her out. Nobody saw this coming. I think this was a night of upsets. Obviously, Cody Garbrandt before got knocked out, I think in the first or second round in his flyweight debut. Charles Oliveira beat Dustin Poirier. I think this was a night of upsets if you think about it, but the biggest upset of the night was obviously Julianna Pena, because the fact is, for the longest time, Amanda Nunes was rightly seen as the most dominant female fighter of all time, one of the greatest female fighters of all time. I mean, her resume is unmatched, and what she's accomplished in the sport is incredible. Obviously, with the Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier fight, there was always a chance that Oliveira was going to win. He was always a live he was a slight underdog, but he was a champion for a reason. It's because he's legitimate. But with Julianna Pena, I don't think anyone ever saw this coming. So this is definitely one of the biggest upsets in women's MMA history, but I don't think it's the biggest. I think the biggest has to be the Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey fight, because that knockout just perpetuated around the whole world. Like, literally the whole world knew about that. But this is certainly up there. I think this is certainly up there. I'm really happy for Pena, and I'm actually happy for women's MMA in general, because you need upsets to happen. Because if upsets don't happen and one person is dominating for the longest time, the sport gets a bit stale and boring. I mean, it just doesn't feel the same. You need upsets. I mean, it manages to make the sport more exciting. So yeah, I'm very happy for Pena. Obviously, she's a complete warrior, and she went in there and did her thing. But it just shows sometimes you're the hammer that's nailing the nail, and sometimes you're the nail and you're getting hammered. It just does. In combat sports, you just can never tell what can happen next. And this is probably, you can argue, this might be the biggest upset in women's MMA in a very, very long time. Obviously, I think the Holly Holm vs Ronda Rousey upset was bigger because of the amount of name recognition that Ronda Rousey had at that time. She was like this female phenom. She was in movies. She was literally dominating her opponents. She looked like she was something really special. Then Holly Holm came along and with one head kick completely destroyed her. But I'll be honest with this fight. I think it's definitely up there as one of the biggest upsets, but I don't think it's the biggest. I think Amanda Nunes can beat Julianna Pena. It's not like the Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm fight where if there was a rematch, there was no way that Ronda Rousey would have won because Holly Holm was just so much better. If Nunes keeps it on her feet and she doesn't get into a grappling exchange and doesn't get into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match, I think she beats Pena, because in the first round she dropped her twice with a calf kick and I think it was a right hand. So all she needs to do is keep on the feet, have great takedown defense, and I think she can win. The fact is, Dana White said that there was going to be a rematch happening soon, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest upsets in women's MMA, but I don't think it's the biggest, and I don't think Amanda Nunes is completely down and out. The way she looked in a post-fight interview, she looked quite positive, and I think she could get a win against Pena if she just applies herself and follows the right game plan and doesn't get into a grappling exchange with her in the rematch. I think she can gain her titles back, and it seems like there's going to be a rematch between the two anyway. So yeah, I'm very happy for Pena, but I think Amanda Nunes could beat her if she gets back on her work and manages to do what she needs to do. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Tell me your opinion, and what do you think about this upset? What do you think Julianna Pena goes from here? Do you think she rematches Amanda Nunes, or do you think she's going to decide against it? We'll see what happens, but I think this is definitely one of the biggest upsets of the year. Tell me what you think below, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.